It looks like a few of our board members haven't logged back in yet. Maybe we want to take
okay.
a couple minute pause and.
Yeah, we will. Susan Manning, are you on? Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion to move into open session.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Elizabeth?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye. Whoops.
Eric?
Aye.
Susan Fox?
Aye.
Susan Manning?
Aye.
Lorraine? Aye. Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Order of business. There are no public appearances today. And I have a motion for consent agenda.
Well, I move approval of the consent agenda is presented.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Elizabeth?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Susan Fox?
Aye.
Susan Manning?
Aye.
Maureen? Aye. Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Next are recognitions.
Okay, thank you. So we want to start off tonight's recognitions with a huge congratulations to Jared Rosing on being named the 2023 School Business Manager of the Year by WASBO. We appreciate everything that you've done, Jared, for the Monona Grove School District, and that you continue to do as well moving forward. And so there is a link there for board members to see all the many congratulations and kind words from our community members commenting when we posted this in our social media. So congratulations, Jared.
Thank you.
Okay. The high school performed the musical Back to the 80s last weekend to rave reviews. It was especially wonderful to see our talented students on the stage again. Our middle school students from Glacial Drumlin, or excuse me, the eighth graders from Glacial Drumlin were also able to see the dress rehearsal on Friday, and they loved it. And again, there's a photo from the dress rehearsal. Congratulations to the Monona Grove French Concours oral team, who competed in various speaking categories in French at the virtual regionals competition. Outstanding performances included Nancy Zhang and Tony Kozic in the poetry level 2, Kelly Ryan in poetry level 3, Rowan Rice and Miriam Israel for readers theater level 2, Lois Buckingham and Olivia William for readers theater level 4, and Kate Walsh and Katie Ryan for extemporaneous conversation level 4. 6 students have earned the added honor and opportunity to compete at the state level later this month. Ms. Todd's 5th grade Granite Ridge School class is doing a special project that will last the entire school year and is a visual representation of their own learning. At the beginning of the year, students started by potting a plant and have taken care of the plant all year. The plants have grown larger, so before spring break, they decorated a larger pot in Ms. Miller's art class, and they'll repot their plant forward. So again, there's some photos with the that show more about the project. That's my report for this evening.
All right. There are no correspondence and announcements. Next are administrative reports. Dan?
Okay, just one quick item. I just wanted to update the board that, as you know, in these previous months, you had approved open enrollment seats. We had approved a preliminary staffing plan. And as we progress in the spring, those are things that we'll continue to monitor. And so the open enrollment window ends at the end of April. And so we will come back in May and share those results as well as updated enrollment projections, not only from open enrollment as well as projections from our resident students, and any potential revisions to the staffing plan as well we'll share with you. We'll give you just a heads up that one of the things that you'll see the next time we bring back an updated staffing plan is fifth grade at Winnequa School. The plan that was approved previously, we were looking at kindergarten that we thought we might be able to reduce down to 4 sections. We have 5 this year. And based on our latest projections, we're going to need to stay with 5. And so that'll be in the updated plan. You'll see all the updated numbers and class size and so on. So I can tell you that we absolutely will be able to continue to staff to make sure we are meeting the board goals on class size or below, but we'll give updated numbers because they are changing as we move along here into the spring. So.
No questions? All right, we can move on to board reports. First is policy committee. Susan Manning.
Okay, so the policy committee met on Wednesday, April 6th. They continued to finish consideration of Neola Volume 30, number 2, which included policy 1230 responsibilities of the superintendent. We'd already really approved that. When you look at that, it's a revised policy. When you look at that, basically all we did was we put in a new line under A that basically was already in an administrative section, but we put it in here just to round out, make it clear that the superintendent is responsible for the operations of the district. We looked at 155 committees. We made no effectively substantive changes. We just moved the end of the policy up toward the top so that when it said all committees, you dealt with that issue and then went into the standing committees and the ad hoc committees. 2431 school nicknames and mascots, and Peter has asked, and it's a thoughtful ask, that we made sure that we addressed when a policy is new. This is a new policy. It was initiated based on contact with the school district about nicknames and mascots and what was being displayed in the high school gym. So the committee had discussed a need for this policy to address school nicknames and mascots. The intent is to maintain a positive learning environment within the schools. And after discussion and significant research by all the committee members, and I want to thank, and Dan, thank each and every one of you for the work that you did, and other resolutions explored, a new draft policy was approved. In terms of the SRO related policies, there is a agreement among the committee members that we do need a policy that basically deals specifically with the SRO position. We're still working on that. We had extensive discussion on foreign exchange and non-resident policies, 5111 and 5114. And they were discussed in relation to the situation facing the 2 Ukrainian exchange students currently attending the high school. And at this point, Superintendent Olson will follow up with the host families and with legal counsel. The policy does not appear to be an impediment as long as they're living with a family and considered residents within the district. Then we started on another approximately 25 policies, volume 31, number 1, Wisconsin policy updates. There were some statutory revisions to the definitions. And we are still waiting to get some more input from Scott Brown prior to the next meeting. The electoral process, so 152.1 was revised based on statutory language. 144.5 board member behavior and code of conduct was revised with new statutory language. 052 officers, no action was needed on this policy. Notice of meetings, again, generally statutory changes that was approved as suggested. And then we have like another 25 or 30 that we're going to keep working on. So that was what we did. And I really want to once again thank this committee. It's a ton of work. The preparation time is extensive. Dan comes in with really good information and good guidance for us. And these people not only prepare for this, but they independently research a significant amount of this information and bring that information to the policy committee. And I am incredibly grateful for that. Do you want me to do the Education Foundation now?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
The Monona Grove Education Foundation met April 12th, 2022. Basically, they have two board member positions. They have 3 individuals that are interested that they are seriously considering. So what they're going to do right now is deem them auxiliary board members and have them attend meetings for the next few months as non-voting advisory members to determine interest and availability. They also have a scholarship for Glenn McNaughton and recognize the passing of Glenn, who was a math teacher at the high school. And I did attend that service. And they announced the Madison Community Foundation is doing a special event, and that is the monetary pass-through for the foundation on May 24th. Their major discussion at this meeting dealt with a request from a high school guidance counselor for funding a high school student to visit the college where they may be attending. This request was approved. And Dan, if you would like to comment further on that, because they are considering it at this time a grant. No update on communications. The fundraising committee report, they are going to be doing the golf ball drop. It will be at the Monona Dream Park, and they don't have a date yet. And they have established committees, which they didn't have before. They have a Pay It Forward committee with Chair Kathy Thomas, fundraising committee with Chair Parrott, communications committee with Chair Kathy Bultman, innovation grants with Chair Jane Beebe, Brant Grant Chair John Weinberger, and scholarships Chair Jason McCutcheon. They will be meeting at 4 p.m. on May 10th. And it was a long meeting. And Dan, if you want to add anything about that grant, or if anybody has questions, I would direct those to Dan.
Yeah, thank you, Susan, for that. And yeah, it was a and I feel a little bit careful, and we certainly want to protect the confidentiality, of our student and family that's involved. But you may be or may not be aware that one of the things that the foundation has been funding through a generous donation, the grant funds, is that different programs, and particularly college visits for our high school students. And usually those are school sponsored visits where we, take a number of students. You also maybe recall that they help support a recent trip, from the Black Student Union from the high school. Those were part of these grant funds as well. So in this case, it was an individual student and from MG21 who had a financial need, and they decided to fund a college visit request. It was for something that was out of state, so there was a substantial cost. The student had already earned a substantial scholarship if they choose to attend. It was a really neat discussion that the board had, and I'm really glad that they chose to support this particular request. And the request actually came from our school counseling staff, that they thought this is a need. And so I appreciate our staff as well stepping up. And so I think there's more to come about the direction of our foundation of, in the past had done some tremendous work on innovation grants, and now looking at some of those individual student needs and family needs that we have in the district. It's great to have them as a resource to be able to help support those students and families.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, next is the Ad Hoc Sustainability Committee. Peter?
All right, thank you. Let's see, we met last Thursday. We had 3 items on the agenda. Our upcoming publicity for our upcoming ribbon cutting in May 21st. Which continued discussion. The prospect, the second item was that we have been invited by the EPA to join their Green Power program, get record for recognition. There is, not a tremendous amount of benefits, but they do provide tools and some resources on publicity and outreach and sort of credibility to a project, and to the organizations that meet certain requirements for having generating the Green Power program means you generate power, which we are going to start doing. And we talked about and considered proceeding with that. It's something we'll bring up and we'll think about the application for the next future meetings. The third thing on our agenda was participating in next year's WASB convention, a presentation there, and again there's a sentiment that we will continue. We'll submit an application for presentation in next year's WASB meeting. I mentioned the last time we met that I would show you the video we created on the project that was created at the high school. However, I wanted to show it right now, and my link stopped working, and I can't get a hold of the guy with the link to see what the update is and so on. I just get a blank screen when I click on the Vimeo link. I'm sorry, so we're gonna have to put that off. Our next meeting is next Thursday.
Thank you, Peter. Next is the Personnel Committee. Susan Fox.
Okay, the Personnel Committee met on, let's see, Wednesday, or it was on the 6th, I guess, of April, to discuss, one of the things we discussed was the extracurricular additive schedule, which is on your agenda for tonight for approval. That's something that had not been looked at in quite a while, and we felt, administration felt that there needed to be some increases to that and some consolidation of the schedule, and we'll talk about that when we get to it tonight. Then we also moved into closed session to discuss bargaining strategies for this coming year with the MGEA for teachers and for educational assistants. And that's the item we discussed in closed session tonight. We will meet with the teachers sometime in May. I think we're still working on an actual date for that to actually start bargaining. And that's about it.
Thank you, Susan. Next are possible action items. So the first is policy revisions, second reading. Peter?
If I may, so there's no rush on this. Unfortunately, with things going on, I haven't had an opportunity to revise this policy to the Hoc Sustainability Committee, and I'd like an opportunity to do that this month. So I just asked that we postpone this second reading on this until I've had an opportunity to discuss it at one of our other meetings.
Susan Manning, did you have something to add?
Well, so I'd kind of like to ask Susan and Elizabeth what their thoughts on that are. This has been out over a month. We have talked to Peter as the chair repeatedly about this, and actually I've also mentioned it to several of the committee members. It's also my impression that it comes, the recommendation comes from you, and then the policy committee basically puts the policy together, which we did, and we spent a significant amount of work on that. It had its first reading, 2 weeks ago? At least 2 weeks ago. And we indicated as soon as we finished that meeting back in March that we had that draft for you and sent it to you. Again, I'd like to have the committee input, but it's a really good policy we firmly support the work that you're doing and putting this into policies so we can give you a governance piece to support it. Elizabeth, Susan, what's your thought?
Elizabeth? I didn't know if you had your hand
You're still on
raised.
mute.
You're on mute.
Oh, God. I was just going to say, Susan's not on mute. I mean, I agree, Peter. Susan, I appreciate, Peter, your request. And I feel like we've been working on this for a while. And so there's been a lot of opportunity to liaise on it. And I would like to move it through today. It's a
Well,
little frustrating that you haven't, like, even after being asked, that you didn't bring it back to committee.
Yeah, I guess I'm inclined to feel the same way. I think we got the original draft from the committee and we felt it was far more prescriptive than we thought was appropriate. And we really did spend a fair amount, a lot of time
Right.
researching this between two different policy committee meetings. It was on the agenda and we looked at other policies and worked on it quite a bit. So I guess I don't see us, because of the time we've already put in on it, I don't see us being willing to accept changes to it. So I
well,
don't have a problem.
I would just like an opportunity to get input from our committee before we.
But you
before
had
this
a
is
meeting.
approved.
You had a meeting just last week.
Yes, I know.
Well, the other thing that might work and bring us to the middle in a good way is if we approve this policy as currently written, and maybe this is even a better process, because then you have the policy, you take the policy back to the committee and bring forward any written changes you would like to make based on whatever resources you have that would suggest those changes. Again, we've done a lot of work.
I understand.
know
I understand that, which is
I'd
why
like to
now that
see
you've
the
done that
policy
work,
go forward to support you at this time.
I agree, but that I don't see a rush. And now that you've done that work, which I appreciate, I would like an opportunity to have a little bit more discussion before we bring forward. That's all I'm asking for. There's no rush as far as I see it. But
Eric, do you have any feedback? What are your thoughts?
I don't, what are my thoughts? If Peter needs more time, is there some sort of reason why he couldn't have more time? Whatever the reason he needs it for? Does it have to be done right now?
Because we've already set this out at least.
I understand that, but
maybe 6 weeks.
I
And
understand.
we've gone back to that committee. They've had multiple opportunities to review that. We wanted that review. We wanted that input. We actually wanted it to come to the committee. And on the first read, I think if you go back and watch that, I think I specifically asked for if there was any input from Peter.
I understand all of that, Susan. That's not my reasoning. I'm asking if there's any reason why this has to be done right now, despite whatever the reasoning is or whatever happened before. Does it have to be done? Is there immediacy to getting this done?
The immediacy originally came from that committee, and we responded in kind.
All right. Peter needs more time. I'm willing to give him more time. That's fine with me, but.
Peter, when do you meet again?
next Thursday, and actually we could discuss this next Thursday.
But that means we have to start over with, if they have any.
You don't have to
suggestions-
start over with
Okay,
anything.
this would be my point. If we decide that we don't want to approve this tonight and we're going to put off approval till the 27th, which is our next board meeting, I think the understanding needs to be that the policy committee is scheduled to meet next Tuesday. We will not meet again, very likely. So in other words, what I'm saying is it will be on the board meeting, the 27th, in the exact same format it is in now. And I'll be very surprised if we have any changes. If you want, as a courtesy, just have them discuss it before you pass it, I guess I don't have a problem with that. But I think they need to understand we feel this is complete, and I just don't.
Well, the committee may. I don't know what the board feels. The committee may feel it's complete. The board may or may not feel it's complete. That's up to the board, not the committee. Just just that's the way it works. We've had a first reading, which means it can be altered before the second reading. That's the purpose of the first and
Which
second
is
reading. You don't have to
tonight.
start over if it
Which
gets,
is,
you don't have to start over, it
Susan's
gets
point.
modified.
Per Susan's point, that's tonight, and there were 2 weeks since the first reading. So I guess process-wise, there's no obligation to bring things back to another committee when an idea comes from a committee. So I'm a little concerned about it because it's just messy, but on the other hand, I don't care a whole lot, so I don't know.
Elizabeth?
So I agree that there's no urgency, and it is frustrating and feels like it doesn't like adequately respect our time, Peter, as far as like the work the policy committee did. And then the specific request to you around get this back to your folks. You had an opportunity to get it to your folks, and then you didn't take that opportunity for reasons that probably
There's a
are
lot
very
going on.
valid.
Yeah.
Sure. And I understand that. But what I'm saying is that to me, it's not like that there's urgency as much as on principle, right? There was an opportunity that wasn't taken, and that's frustrating. I feel frustrated about that.
I'm sorry about that. I mean, okay. I mean, that's fine. It's just that if this was an urgent matter, then I would certainly understand that point of view. I think this is just one that's worth debate. That's all.
But Peter, do you
Just thought.
hear your fellow board members kind of their frustrations with it just because they
Sure.
put so much time and effort?
Well, I'm not asking them. Their time and effort is both valid and appreciated and used. It's not like it's not like we're ignoring their input or anything. It's that the point is to take a look at that input and take a look at what the final result is and have a discussion and see if there's anything, whether it has any significant objections to any of the languages. We think that there's something that gets left out or something. That's all. It's just an opportunity to do that, and unfortunately we didn't have an opportunity to do that. And I'd like to. There's a lot of things going on, is all, and I just like that opportunity. And it does not change in any way the work that the committee has put into this, and does not disregard any of that work.
Well, the
only thing that it matters is that the time we're spending right now, that we're doing the second reading now instead of we're doing it, in 2 weeks. That's all.
Well, I suppose you could make a motion to that effect. And
well, I mean, we don't have to take. We can make a motion, or we can just not take any action. That's all. If you want me to make a motion, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Well, Susan Manning, did you have another comment that you wanted to make?
Well, I think one thing we can do is the initiation came from Peter and his committee, and they already brought us language, and we worked and researched on that, and we went forward. And again, each and every one of the committee members and Dan did research on this, a significant amount. We came back and met again and discussed it again. The other thing is this kind of kicks us in the back in terms of the committee process. Normally, so it already came from that committee. And then then it's the policy committee's job to do the draft and bring that forward and get input on the first read or the second read. And I really do want that input. I think it's really important for us to have that input, but this isn't the process that we generally follow through the committee work. The committee work is advisory to the board.
As is the policy committee. Advisory to the board. And there's no in policy, there's no fixed process about how a policy is developed. There's the roles of the policy development, but it doesn't say that never says anywhere the policy committee gets the last word or whatever, that it goes to another committee and comes out of the policy. That's not fixed. We as a board should do whatever we feel is appropriate. And I am asking as a board that we just put this off for 2 weeks to do the second reading, as I want an opportunity to gather input formally from the committee.
Susan
That's all.
Fox. Thank you, Peter.
well, I was going to say, in an effort to just move this along, I'll move approval of the amended policy 7460 environmental sustainability as presented.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? And so are we doing a roll call vote then for this? Okay, so Elizabeth?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Susan Fox,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Susan Manning,
Aye.
Maureen, aye. Ayes have it. Motion is carried.
Can I just want to make one comment that Peter, we want you to take this back to your committee. We really do. And we as a committee will make sure that we schedule time as soon as you give us input back, because our whole job is to review policies. So whether it's a second read policy or an already implemented policy for your input isn't a critical piece. So we really do want your input.
I understand that, and I appreciate that, but I don't understand then what difference it made to approve it tonight if you're gonna take a look at it again anyway. So that's fine.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. Student fee schedule.
All right, as it indicates, annually, the board has to approve our student fees for the upcoming school year. So we have put forth a recommendation of proposed fees for 22-23. There are no changes to the fee schedule. And as usual, if any family has any type of financial burden or cannot afford those, they can work with their principal and have them waived. And the one thing that you'll note, there is no school nutrition fees on here due to the fact that there is some conversation happening at the federal government level of extending the waiver to provide free meals to students continuing into the next school year. So we'll continue to monitor that. And once we have an idea, if it's free, obviously there won't be anything that needs to come back to the board. If we do have to charge, we will bring an updated fee schedule at that time.
Can I have a motion, please?
I'd move approval of the 2022-2023 student fee schedule as presented.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Elizabeth?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Susan Fox?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Susan Manning?
Aye.
Maureen? Aye. Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Next is the extracurricular additive schedule.
I'll just note, Susan Fox spoke to this a little bit during the Personnel Committee report, and there are two copies attached. One that shows the strike-throughs, the changes to the current schedule, as well as the second one, just the clean copy then without the strike-throughs. So I think Susan already reported on it. We'll take, certainly glad to answer any additional questions you might have.
Elizabeth?
Thanks, Lorraine. Dan, can you talk a little bit about how these salaries are determined? There's just a lot of variability.
Yeah, no, great
I
question.
think I asked that last year too. I'll just continue to ask.
So, and I think it is something that the committee in fact talked about that, the need to really on a more regular basis, reevaluate some of those. So the core of this schedule was done. It was a major revision done about 8 years ago. It started with the committee right as I was hired into the district, and we picked up that work. And at that time, I would say the primary consideration was looking at comparables of other school districts. Now, there was a lot of discussion about, well, how do you differentiate between different activities and sports? And a big factor, of course, is the amount of time put in and some of those responsibilities, but it's not a perfect science. And so that probably what I would say is that this looks like a lot of other school districts, schedule. But I think the committee raised a lot of good points that there does seem to be some that, pretty wide discrepancies in a couple of the activities that maybe we need to relook at. So the commitment I made to the committee is, I think this is an important revision that we're making now to increase salaries and simplify it, but there has to be a commitment to commit annually, revisit this and take a look at it. So.
I think that's helpful. And I do wonder, and I guess this is more of a question for you, Susan Fox, and your committee, but around what are the parameters for even determining the ranges, right? So, forget the difference between athletics and activities, which comes to a certain extent with its own disparities. But even within activities, right? You look at musical, well, musical director feels big, but like, you know, you talk about like show choir and then pep band or pep band versus jazz band, right? Like there's obviously some nuances there that make it so it's different. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to articulate in a more general way what some of those nuances would be that would put you in a particular band for salary versus what, I mean, without that, right, it just looks like a little arbitrary, which I know it's not, so please don't take offense to that.
Well, you know, it has been, this used to be a negotiated item back in the pre-Act 10 days, obviously. And it was difficult to even add anything to the schedule. And we have had, I guess we should also point out, we have some additional positions that have been added because, you know, people just take them on and they should be paid for them. But then there, several years ago, like twice within the last probably 15 years, there have been studies done by teacher committees where, and the last one was done several years ago, headed by our activities director, and they had forms that people who advisors of these positions, people who held the positions, turned in forms talking about like the number of students they worked with, the number of hours they put in, whether it's practices or whether it's preparation, how much travel is involved, how much of it is at night versus right after school. Because in some of these cases, people have to come back or they're staying extra long. There are a lot of factors, and then there was a weighting system, and it was not perfect, but that's how it was arrived at. And so some of these, without knowing the details of what all they do, it is hard to differentiate. And it was noted at the time that there were some that were clearly underpaid given the amount of hours they were putting in, and I think there were some adjustments made. There are others that we brought up, and certainly we've all been made aware recently on a national level of equity between girls and boys sports as well. And that's another thing that could be looked at again. So as Dan said, there is, you know, and none of these are highly paid positions. We're very grateful that we have people who are willing to do them because they are a lot of extra work. We'd like to pay them. And, you know, that's the other thing, I guess, is that we've always, the payments were always percentages of the base, but we've never even increased the base. We hadn't really increased the base on this schedule for a long time. So we did raise it. It still isn't equal to the base salary because we can't afford to do that at this point. So our goal is to keep increasing this every year, and then the whole schedule. And then in addition to that, as Dan said, to have it looked at again, maybe in this next year with the help of our current activities director, just for equity purposes. You know, some seasons are maybe a couple weeks longer than others. That means some significant extra time. Does that merit as much of an increase as those? I don't know. I mean, all that needs to be looked at. So that's, yeah, it's very complicated. And
yeah,
I just know, I used to have a form. If I probably still have it somewhere in my files to show you what they actually had people fill out and look at. I don't know if I.
Yeah, no, I mean, I believe you. I'm just curious. And like, you know,
Right.
What's the difference between Madrigal Singer 1 and Madrigal Singer 2? I don't know, but one gets paid more than the other, right? And so I just, you know, just curious. That's all.
And it may be that there are more rehearsals for one than the other. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I absolutely believe that there's rationale. I think it'd be nice to articulate the rationale.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I can just add one thing, and you're right. It hasn't always been. When we come sometimes in mid-year and adjust just like a particular, you know, activity, then there's always given a rationale. And when we do the sweeping changes, of course, you don't get all that documentation. But you'll notice Model UN, there's a recommended increase for both the head position and the assistant. And I can speak to why did that increase? Well, actually, a few years ago, I think the Model UN advisor was only like 3% or something. And over time, and you're aware, you've heard it in some of our reports about what a fantastic job they're doing. And the credit goes to our advisors, you know, Brian Jefferson and Jeremy Wallace. And so as that club has expanded and grown to basically do more and more competitions, what our activities director will look at and say, well, you know, the amount of time that those advisors put in is really on par with those other ones that are at 7%. So those are how some of those adjustments make. We've never gone backwards with one, but I'm okay with that. I mean, it's not like anyone's overpaid anyway on these things, but that's, you know, informally, that's what's happened. And it wouldn't be, we probably could formalize it, you know, a little bit better.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, can I have a motion, please? Susan Fox?
Yeah, I move approval of the 2022, 2023 extracurricular additive schedule as presented.
I'll second.
I think
Give that one
Eric-
to Eric.
Yeah. All right, any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Elizabeth?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Susan Fox?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Susan Manning?
Aye.
Lorraine? Aye. Ayes have it. Motion is carried. All right, next are discussion items. First is policy revisions, first reading.
I can kick it off. There's only three. These are, Susan actually spoke to those in her report already. So I think they're kind of self-explanatory. I guess we could just take any questions on them.
Okay, there's no questions. All right.
And again, I can just reiterate too that the committee's language is basically non-substantive. We just moved the end. Everything that's in red at the end has been moved to page 1. So that's pretty straightforward. We added one line to the responsibilities of the superintendent to clarify that the superintendent is responsible for operations within the district, and the school nicknames and mascots policy. And again, we would appreciate any input on this first read. This is a new policy. Susan Fox helped get it drafted, and then we all individually and researched looking for all kinds of policies. And in fact, one of the things we found was some language in a WASB resolution in 2020. It wasn't passed the first time, but it was passed the second time. So I mean, we looked at a lot of different pieces and felt that this was something we needed to do to assure a positive school environment for our students.
But,
Susan Fox?
yeah, I would just add that the initial concern that triggered it was Native American mascots specifically. That concern had been raised. And that's how we started researching it. And then we found that there were other districts that were actually being more inclusive than that. We thought we should just, as long as we're creating this policy, we should be as inclusive as we could be. So we broadened the gist of it so that, there are other criteria considered to try to be more inclusive for equity purposes.
Thank you, Susan. All right, no other further questions. So moving on to future meeting dates. Our next meeting date is on Monday, the 25th, and it's the school board reorganization meeting. And then our regular school board meeting is on the 27th of April. Dan?
Yeah, so, and if you refresh, I actually just added on there a tentative special meeting of next Tuesday, the 19th, and I'll confirm that with you. But if right now, if we could check on your availability, the purpose of that special meeting would be either to bring forth a recommendation for our Director of Business Services position or an update for you, one or the other.
Well, and Dan, WSB is doing a Zoom meeting that night at 6 o'clock on the 19th. It's a focus group to try and put information together for WSB. I happen to be on that Zoom group. I don't know if anybody else is. It's at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, the 19th.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. Would 5 o'clock work?
Are we still doing a personnel committee or committee meeting on that day? I have a
No.
hold for it.
No, we're not,
Okay.
because the MGA was not able to meet until May. So
Okay.
they haven't gotten back to us on which date in May, right? I don't
Okay.
think.
Correct. We're supposed to wait.
But
to
none of the
confirm
April
those.
dates that we were holding are, yeah. Good.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Eric, for
Yeah.
mentioning that. Yeah.
Oh, Dan, yeah, for me, I think the 5 o'clock would be fine because ours is a Zoom meeting, so.
I, yeah, I can do
Yeah.
that.
I could make that work. It's not great for me. I can shorten up what I have prior to that, but because since
Okay.
it's in person, it's a little more tricky. It's better for me in some ways because I have,
The 19th isn't in person, is it?
oh, no, the 19th would just be or virtual, right?
It'd be
Okay.
virtual, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
So that's, yeah, it's a little better. Okay.
Yeah, so,
Elizabeth, does that work for
I
you?
can make it work.
okay. All right. I'll get out an email confirmation in advance and some information for you as well, obviously, so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, can I have a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Hi.
All right. Motion is carried.